Welcome to the Retail Tech Podcast. I'm Darius Wasafi, your host, and in this follow-up interview from the NRF 2017 Big Show, I spoke with Erick Rowe, VP of Strategy at Infor Retail. Infor is an enterprise software company that's transformed its online architecture to cloud-based after new leadership took over in 2010, and also has acquired and integrated multiple other companies successfully. It's a company to watch in retail tech, and I hope you enjoy this conversation. How are you today, Erick?
I'm doing great.
Thank you for taking time to talk to me. You told me a little bit about Infor and how it's actually gotten into retail, and it sounded very interesting. So I want to learn more about what Infor is doing, and maybe we start from a background. Infor was, I guess, started in 2002 as a different company, and it's gone through quite an evolution to get here.
Yeah, it certainly has. Infor has went through a couple of evolutions over the years. About 6 years ago, went through a major transformation when Charles Phillips came over and took over with a new management team, and they really started investing in the product suite in an aggressive nature to move things to the cloud, build out beautiful UX experiences, incorporate science into the solutions, and then finally focus on micro verticals. And so they made those investments over the last 6 years, and just recently began to focus on retail, specifically as a targeted micro vertical. So about 2 years ago, there were only a couple people that were dedicated to retail. And over that 2-year period, we now have approximately 900 people that are focused on retail. So crazy amount of growth
Right.
for the company.
2 to 900 in 2 years. I think that's probably a record somewhere.
I think it is. I absolutely think it is. And what's really interesting is what really enabled it, or why it happened so quickly. And it comes down to the fact that retail right now is going through a major transformation. In the same way that we saw digitalization hit the recording industry, hit the VHS, and think of Blockbuster, where they were a few years ago.
Right.
General retail is hitting that same digital transformation with the likes of Amazon and other industry competitors. So traditional retailers are finding they really have to reinvent their business. They have to figure out how they're going to compete in this next generation of retailing, or they're quite frankly going to go away. And so because of that, they really need to take a look at all the technology that they have. And the traditional software providers that provided an end-to-end suite of software for retail were really all built out in the 1990s on on-premise software that didn't take into consideration things like omni-channel or customer for every single transaction. And so the market is at this point where they need to re-engineer their business, transform their business, and they know they need to do it with technology, but the current technology providers really didn't have that end-to-end suite in a cloud solution with a beautiful UX. So they're very hungry for something different.
Right. So the Cloud Suite is the name of the product, correct?
Yes, Cloud Suite Retail.
Okay. So Cloud Suite is the background, I guess, the platform, the in the cloud platform that different applications are built on. One of them is Cloud Suite Retail, which is designed specifically for retailers.
Exactly.
Okay.
And we have a couple different functionality that we provide to retailers. The approach that we've taken to grow so quick is we've done some acquisitions, but we've also worked with famous retailers that are looking to partner with somebody to come up with a next generation solution. And for example, on the stores environment, we're partnering with DSW to go ahead and build out a converged commerce experience. So a next generation solution in the stores that addresses things like inventory, but is all on a beautiful UX that can be shared with customers to go ahead and facilitate omni-channel.
Okay, is that something that's actually in the works right now, or is it launched?
So it is in the works. It'll over the next year. It'll be go ahead and start to roll out to the stores, but we are still working with them for their functionality. So, in order to accelerate that development, we did acquire a company that has Converged Commerce right out of the box, and we started to merge the two technologies in order to innovate and provide a solution to our customers earlier. So today we have a Converged Commerce solution that we're positioning to different retailers that are looking to transform their in-store business.
What company was that was acquired?
It's a company by the name of Starmount in Austin, Texas.
Starmount, okay.
And in the coming weeks, you'll be seeing a press release for a major retailer on the fashion side that we've just signed a partnership with to go ahead and provide that in-store solution to.
Okay, so something that's really interesting for me in overall trends is the idea of the cloud. It's not easy to change a software that already works. It's a very difficult thing to do. So
exactly, and that's what's so. And once again, kind of, I think that's the reason we've grown so quickly. Is if you take these legacy solutions and you try to just put them up in the cloud. I think sometimes people refer to that as cloud washing.
Yeah,
it's really it's difficult, and you don't get all the benefits that people expect from the cloud. Things like beautiful user experience. Scalability from an elastic standpoint, upgrades that you can go ahead and just automatically take on as a user. These are things that traditionally you really have to build from the base to go ahead and provide it.
Right.
And a great example of that in a planning and optimization solution, forecasting solution that was built for the cloud. And basically it does forecasting using machine learning. Where it ramps up from just a couple of cores to 16,000, if you can believe that. And it does that basically to start doing algorithms that were just never possible in the old world. And you get to a level of sophistication in your forecasts you just couldn't touch before. And it just shows the power of the elasticity of the cloud.
Right, right. Of course, the number of cores is kind of interesting because you used to have only one core per processor. Maybe in 10 years we'll have 16,000 core processors. But right now I know that's a lot of processors.
It is. I used to quote processors, and then someone kind of corrected me and said you should probably talk about cores since processors vary so much.
Right, right. So now talking about acquisitions, you've done, Infor's done a lot of acquisitions, and it's very difficult for most people to actually integrate different products into a seamless, coherent, and working well together final solution for the customer, because you don't want the customer to see all these different things. How do you do it at Infor?
It's a great question, and it's something that you have to take into consideration from the very beginning. And so, what we've done is we've been very strategic in the acquisitions that we've done. The first one we did was a company called GT Nexus, and essentially what that does is that provides a network. It's basically a traditional B2B network that allows suppliers to go ahead and work with buyers to do financial collaboration. So, for example, a purchase order sits on a network and each person can touch it, or it allows inventory visibility. So as a buyer, you could actually see inventory visibility all the way into the supplier's bill of materials or onto their shop floor. And so what we did was we made that acquisition, and that became really a core to a lot of the suite that we're building, this network that will allow one to have different businesses, the ability to talk to each other, the retailer to their suppliers. And then the second thing we added was a planning and optimization platform. So we're really looking at things. You can start to see the theme here from a platform perspective. And the Predictix is a company we acquired there, which gave us a set of tools called Logic Blocks, where we were able to build out merchandising functionality that essentially all sits on the cloud. And because it's one platform, you actually get, if you've heard the concept of HTAP, hybrid transactional analytical processing. You basically have your analytics and your transactions on the same platform, so you don't have to integrate data, and you get this real-time analytics, which is good for a couple perspectives. The real-time analytics is obviously great, but you also don't have to do these big BI projects after you've implemented your enterprise software, which is usually the case. And then finally, on the store side, they're very strategic because they were already had a vision of what we wanted to do, and they started to take a closer look at Starmount, and they said, you know what, this company is using the same technology stack that we're adding. It's very complementary to the resources that we have. We can plug and play it. So in short, to answer your question, I think you have to look at things from a platform perspective and make sure that you're acquiring companies that you can really innovate on top of. And for us, maybe that's a little bit easier because we're earlier in our growth spot. And you could have essentially a very organic approach to building the solutions, but then using these acquisitions to accelerate versus just having these big integration of fully mature solutions.
Right. And I think technology actually in today's software world is helping integrate acquisitions easier if, as you said, the platforms are compatible. So with the APIs, APIs basically are driving all the communication between the different tools. So if you're looking at a company that has really robust APIs, integrating that into your final solution is a lot easier to do, regardless of what their back-end system is. That's important, but that integration becomes a lot easier and a lot faster.
Absolutely.
So I think that's like an advantage of technology, a different way of the new software that's helping business, not just in sales, but also in acquisitions and in integration of the back-end systems. Now, so when we talk about retail, what does Infor, what do you think of as retail in general? Because initially it was multi-channel, then it's become omni-channel, and now it's become just commerce. Everybody, I think, is understanding that the future is everything. It's not just one channel. Is that the same way that Infor looks at it?
I think that's a fair statement. I've heard analysts refer to things like commerce always, always on. What I like to look at it is from a customer experience standpoint. I think the world used to look at things in channels, or they would look at it as integrating these different modules, these different experiences even. I think what you have to do is you have to step back and you just have to look at it customer experience as a whole. I do, talking back to that digital transformation that's happening to retail right now, I think any retailer that just does more of what they've done in the past isn't going to be successful. They really have to step back and ask, what is their brand experience? I tell a story where, if you think about it, even 5 years ago, the secret to winning in retail was your supply chain, get the products to the stores cheaply and efficiently. It was assortment, make sure you get the right products in the store. And then customer experience was kind of the third one. But if you got the first two done, you'd be successful. And I think what's happened with the Amazons in the world is they've kind of flipped that upside down. So now supply chain is really, it's just table stakes, because Amazon can get you a product within a couple hours, often, and for sure within a couple days. Assortment, you can no longer win by having the 5 right stereos in your store. Instead, On the internet, there's going to be an endless aisle of stores, right? So you're never going to compete with everything there, which really leaves the last one, which is the customer experience. And I think it's the brands that can really get that right connection with the customer, so they feel right from a brand perspective. Those are the ones that are going to be successful, and it'll look very different than the retail of past, where it was all so product centric. It's going to be more customer centric.
So, I mean, you've mentioned Amazon. Of course, Amazon is on everybody's mind, and it's really pushing the envelope for everybody. We're hearing, even as of like last week, Macy's being thought of as an acquisition target, and all the challenges that people are having. What do you think is what's going to happen to all the malls and the big box stores? Are they going to survive, or are they going to just be broken down?
Yeah, it's a great question. If you kind of go back to that business model where it was assortment and it was supply chain, that's why big boxes did so well, right? For almost the last 20 years. I think in this new era, some of the big box retailers will relook at their experience. So walking through, say, in a big, large electronics store is going to be exciting because you can touch, feel. They really focus on that experience as you walk through and that connection to the brand. Think of, for example, a Apple store in the Genius bar. I think my wife told me yesterday she was at a mall and it was just about dead at 2 p.m, except for the Apple store, which was just back-to-back people. And so if you can get that experience right in the store, those are the ones going to win. So if you step back and ask the question about malls, I can kind of see a mall being successful if it has the right experiences within it. People still like to touch things. They like to interact with people. So if from a mall standpoint, maybe you'll walk through and you'll be able to take a look at, some of the stores won't be traditional retailers. Maybe a lot of that space is you can go take care of your dentist visit or, a checkup. But you go into that mall and you have the full end-to-end experience that is worthwhile for you to park your car and go inside. And then some of the stores that are going to be there are going to be much different than the stores of past that were just concerned about that product. They're going to have experiences that you just enjoy walking around, and you have a certain connection with the brand. And one of our customers on the commerce side is called Zoomies. And if you take a look on their website, it's amazing at some of their videos. They sell like skateboard type products to that age. And they look at themselves as a culture company, versus a company that's selling individual goods. And you can really get a feel for it if you look at their advertising or their YouTube videos.
So the concept of the store that has no employees in it, like the Amazon Go store. Now, there's a lot more to that than, what the headlines say. There are going to be people, at least in the beginning. But what kind of an experience is it when you go to a store and there is no human beings in there?
That's a good question. And I might flip it to say, when it comes down to it, it'll be the customer, it'll be the experience that you go into the store and get. So in some cases, for a store, that customer experience might be one that doesn't necessarily need people. For example, maybe the Amazon example of you just go in and you pick up some yogurt and then you walk out and you don't even have to, talk to anybody. That's ideal. But then maybe there's another one that might be around fashion, or I recently bought a motorcycle, and I go to the motorcycle store and there's just a culture you go in there to experience. In those cases, I think there's always going to be people. So I think it's going to vary. It's best to look at it under the lens of experience versus from a purely technology standpoint, because in some cases people will be absolutely critical to that. Where in other scenarios there may be situations where you really don't necessarily need people.
I think that checkout feature is probably the first one that's going to be fully automated.
Yeah, I think there certainly is lots of spots for automation. I don't know if you saw this company, but the company, I believe it's called Pointer. They're not one of our customers, but they essentially have really automated the whole store. They sell jeans, and you walk in and they have all these jeans hanging up on lines, and then you have a application on your phone, and you essentially pick which ones you'd like to try on, and then they have chutes or something that basically puts those in your size into one of the dressing rooms, and then it tells you what dressing room to go to. So they have a ton of dressing rooms with numbers, and it'll say go to dressing room number 4, where all of the clothes will be waiting. And I've heard a couple similar examples around innovation, making things easier around the dressing room. I think once you have RFID, some processes like that, there absolutely will be more places to automate. And as you mentioned, the whole checkout process is definitely a key, easy one to hit.
More detail on how Infor actually works with customers. What is a typical engagement lifecycle with a retailer?
We have multiple ways that we interact with customers. Sometimes a customer might be looking for a very point solution, and then may take a little bit more of a traditional approach because it's all in the cloud. You kind of quickly get demos, that sort of thing. But what I find most interesting is our customers that we're working with on transformations. And Infor has something somewhat very unique in that we have our own digital consulting organization. It's called Hook and Loop Digital. And basically what they will do is they'll come into a retailer and they'll help them figure out, what do you want to be in 5 years? What does your brand want to look like? What is your customer experience going to be? What are the headlines? If we were to look out 5 years from now, that you would see, say, if you're a fashion retailer, what would be that headline in Women's Wear Daily? What would be the Wall Street Journal article? What would be the tech articles about you? And really start to vision where are you going to be, where are you trying to get to, so that you can begin with the end in mind. And once you kind of take this transformational consulting sort of view, you start to then say, okay, well, what does the user experience look like? What are some quick wins that I might be able to do to get me towards that end state vision? What the mobile experience look like, so that we can take some of our mobile solutions right out of the box, but then we may go ahead and customize and bolt onto it like a clienteling app that's very specific customer brand. And so that first step in figuring out what you want to do strategically as you transform your business, then working with architects, et cetera, to go ahead and map out what does that solution set look like. What are the years from a roadmap standpoint? What's that first thing that I can get some quick wins off, help fund the whole system, make that difference for my brand, and then go ahead and start to move usually these old legacy on-premise software up to the cloud. And the more you move to the cloud, the more time and energy you can devote to your individual brand, because you're not maintaining all these old legacy IT systems.
I think having that in-house digital expertise will definitely help, in getting the projects run through a lot smoother. That's sometimes a challenging point, but that's good. So I want to thank you, Erick, for giving me the time, and look forward to learn more about how Infor Retail is evolving.
Absolutely. Thanks for taking the time to talk.